I got, no, it's good. You're on, okay. Good morning, all.
Morning.
Welcome to the tourism occupancy tax for May 21st, 2024. I need a motion to approve the minutes of tourism and occ tax for April 23rd. Ross, Mr. Stroud. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. All right, privilege to the floor and the public comment or any public comments. See a hand back there. Mr. Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I've addressed this committee before. Unfortunately, I'm not on the committee. But before you was a part of spending plan supplemental. I don't think we should support that. We didn't have money to do the Warren Center. We need money to do other things. And I wonder where that money's going. So I've talked about the increases that we've gotten from the short-term rentals. We could be getting more. And I still have the strong belief and opinion that that money should be put into reserve for Warren County to do some more special programs. So thank you.
Thank you
And,
for your comments.
See you later.
Anyone else? All right. You're up.
Is the representative from the Queensbury?
Fire department? No, I don't think, he said he wasn't gonna come.
So then he doesn't need to come, then you're
Yeah,
okay. So the,
It was changed to 3,000.
so we have, sorry, thank you. I didn't realize he wasn't coming. So we have one more application, which is a municipal funding for the Queensbury, South Queensbury, excuse me, Volunteer Fire Department for the Balloon Festival. And we are recommending a $3,000 support for that.
And the reason for that, we tabled it at the last meeting because after reading the contract, and the gentleman agrees he'd like to see at least something of at least 3,000. And I kind of just said I would bring it up to the board this time around, instead of the 5. So I need a motion on that. Anybody wants to make a motion? Okay. Ms. Runyon,
I'll make a motion.
all right, Mr. Bean will second it. Any questions on it?
I don't see why we're giving this money to them. They're gonna buy T-shirts and stuff. I don't see where that's
Well, that's what we reduced it. He's not buying T-shirts.
doing.
He's just spending lunch money. But I kind of told him this is, could be the last.
Quite a nice
We'll
lunch.
see next year.
I don't see where it's occupancy tax related.
You can vote the way you like. So we have a motion and a second.
I have a question.
Question?
Does the county provide meals for volunteers?
No, I checked into that. They do provide meals for some of the workers at the hangars through DPW, but they don't provide meals for these volunteers.
Could we consider that?
That's,
For all volunteer, I mean, it's a big event that they're not getting paid for. And it's a fair distribution of whatever funds it costs us. Some get meals and beverages and some don't.
I mean, it's a good idea and I have no problem, but that will have to come up at budget time. It's too late now for this year, I think.
Can't we include them with the DPW for the meals?
That,
Uh-oh.
I can't answer that question. You gotta talk to DPW because I don't know how much they have for how many people.
There was,
Go ahead.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was some reason for that. I can't recall specifically. I'll have to look at it, but just keep in mind that the people we feed there who work for the county are paid. So they're paid by overtime. Sometimes we reimburse that overtime with occupancy tax money. But they're paid individuals as opposed to volunteers. And there was some rationale that we couldn't provide those meals for people who were unpaid volunteers. I'd have to go back and check. Maybe Supervisor Stroud, you recall, I think.
Look, Ms. Runyon, you had your hand up?
No, I don't,
Oh,
but
Mr. Stroud, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay, go ahead.
you have 150 volunteers that are providing emergency services for the Balloon Festival. And that's all part of the big package of holding this Balloon Festival. So food for the volunteers and paying for the equipment, and I know you're not paying for their time, but, you know, South Queensbury Fire does provide a lot to this balloon festival and help make it happen. If you didn't have the fire services there, I don't think you can get the insurance. I don't think you could have balloon festival.
Well, I spoke to the gentleman. I asked him if he got anything out of Queensbury. He said, Mr. Stroud's had him come to the county. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one final point too. Regardless of whether the money goes to the emergency services and they provide their own meals, or we as a county decide to provide the meals, there's still going to be a cost associated with that at some point, because the meals are not donated, so. There are volunteers who provide the meals. Supervisor Runyon is always there, playing a big role in that. So.
That's what I wanted to say. I do volunteer. My daughter works for the DPW, so I'm like, you know, a little kitchen helper there. And it takes a lot of work just to feed the ones that we do feed, and a lot of cost. And if we can feed these volunteers for $3,000, you're saving money.
Well, the whole thing is that the whole 5, so you know, the whole, if you read the whole thing, was for 150 T-shirts.
Mm.
With 150 volunteers. So
Well-
we got the T-shirts out and we kept the food.
Also, I'm sorry, but there's space for them to eat in there is limited
Limited.
as well.
Right.
The tables, you know, that are set up.
But Mr. Rossi, it could be an idea you want to bring up at budget time and get more out and move it along
Well, I
more.
think to me, sounds like a reasonable approach. We're buying meals for people that we're paying overtime to, but volunteers or not. So you know, if there's somewhere on the property that needs to be larger, so it's a food area, food tent, food building, whatever you call it. And the volunteers who are identified as such can go there and take a break and get a beverage and have something to eat. I just think it's reasonable with the expectation, as most of you said, how many people we need to operate this. I don't know who's next in line to come and say, hey, wait a minute, we volunteer and we need.
No.
I just ask for an equitable approach to this.
Yes, Ms. Runyon.
How many people are we talking about with the volunteer fire department? How many?
He told me 150. That's why he needs
150
150
people?
T-shirts. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Chairman, and in defense of the T-shirts, I know that, but that did identify, the reason they did that is identified them as emergency services personnel as they were walking around wherever they were. You always knew who they were, so, and that's probably needed new ones.
Anything else?
I can go.
Mr.
for the
Strainer,
food
go
part.
ahead.
I can go for the food part of it. I understand the T-shirts too, but you know, it's getting a little out of hand, I think.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second. Let's just say all in favor. Let's raise our hands if. Okay, so
I would say I'd give them the whole 5,000 and then get the T-shirts. Can we do?
that's a different motion now.
We have to finish this.
What's that?
We have to finish this motion.
Yeah.
We did, okay. As long as-
We voted on it.
Is there any opposed?
Is there any opposed? I mean, I asked, that. Nobody opposed. Okay, so it passed. 3,000.
Thank you.
All
The
right.
next is an amendment to a resolution 589 of 2023. Road Marketing, we do partnership with them for research. There's a Nowcast subscription that will allow us to combine our different assets of the research and put it into an overview for the 2023, and then will also happen for 2024 and give us a year in review. So that's an additional $5,600. There's also a little education here from additional 6 POIs. To give you an idea, points of interest is what POI stands for. We added some additional pieces, i.e. since we're talking about the balloon festival, the airport became an additional POI so that we can track the traffic there during that time. So that would be an example of what a POI is. So that total request is 5,600 and it's in the budget.
Mr. Stroud? Second, Mr. Drossy. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Then the third resolution on the table is to approve the spending plan for 2024 as appears as it applies to the towns, and the city of Glens Falls. A little history on this. In 2018, the spending plan was $405,000. 2019, it was reduced to approve a few occupancy tax awards due to inadequate funding. It was approved in 2021 and 2020. It wasn't approved, excuse me, let me rephrase that. It wasn't approved in 2021 or 2022. In 2023, it was awarded at the amount of $405,000. And in that same resolution, there was additional funding for the Civic Center for the renovations of Heritage Hall. That was a one and done, but that was part of that resolution. That's why it's in here. The new resolution that's on the table today is the request for funding of the 2024 spending plan in the amount of $450,000 to be paid in September of 2024. Lake George, which is combined town and village allocation of 150,000. Bolton is 60,000. Queensberry is 60,000. Towns, the remaining towns and cities of Glens Falls is 180,000, with $20,000 each for the 8 remaining towns and city of Glens Falls.
Any questions on the resolution?
I have a question. Just a moment.
Well, let me get a question for you.
Um,
Oh, yeah, we should make the motion first. Before the question. All right, do I get a motion to approve it? Mr. Rossi, do I get a second? Mr. Rossi? Now you can ask questions.
Okay, thanks. All right, so this is the way it used to be. We used to get 2 payments. One would be, well, I think it was originally 30, now it's 60. And then we got another payment later. Season, I forget, October was it?
Yeah.
That we got based on a formula,
Moment.
it was a much bigger amount. I say 100.
Of the overage of the octax, that was,
So we got 2
that's what it
payments.
was. Yeah,
This is to restate
this is, this
the
is,
original payment.
that's just the spending plan.
That's additional to the 25% that the towns and
Yeah,
Which is already
25%.
yeah.
So this is additional, this is the
Right.
way it was. And we always spent all the Artex money that we did, all of it. Both payments and none. I mean, we do the Hyde, we do the Balloon Festival, we do the Chapman, we do the Glens Falls Symphony, we pay for the fireworks, the Crandall Park and the 4th of July event, which is not another 4th of July, I think it's July. But the regional sporting events, we give to many Lake George, Queensberry, and Glens Falls activities. Now, if they didn't come to Queensberry, and they have traditionally, they'd have to come to the county. So where are you saving money? You're making more work for the county, and now you got all these other applications, because with the Hyde and the Chapman and all the others are gonna do, I'm gonna say, hey, we don't have the money, go to the county. We've always gone to you. I know you have, but we've always had the money. But now they want to take the money away from us. Now you gotta go to the county and beg for it. So I think the system works very well in that you let these localities, Warrensburg, Bolton, Glens Falls, Queensbury, allocate them, and it's usually the lower stuff. It's the $10,000-15,000 range. But the Balloon Festival, we even give to that. So, it made sense before. I think it still makes sense that you give that money to the localities, take the burden off the county, and allow these people like the Chapman and the Hyde, the Local Society and the Glens Falls Symphony and the fireworks and the 4th, let them just keep casting it every year, because they're all great events. They're nonprofit agencies. No one's making money on this. These are for the benefit of our locals and the tourists that are visiting the area for these events. You know, it's like the Lunchball Symphony, the Fourth of July event. Fireworks now, which used to be 4,000, they went up to 5,000. Now they're 8,000. All right, so they haven't gone down in price, they've gone up in price. So you want to have a nice Fourth of July at Crandall Park with the Lunchball Symphony, and thousands of people go to this event, locals and visitors. But that's funded by Lunchballs and Queensbury. So if you take the money away from us, we'll have to take it from them. I don't think it's gonna make anybody happy, so I support reinstating the original allocations as proposed today.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Before I call for, I'd like to call for a roll call vote, not a hand vote on this resolution. Oh, you're coming to me first? I'm saying no.
Yes.
We're voting on what's proposed right here.
Mhm.
Can I ask your rationale for no?
Me personally?
Yeah, like, what, why are you?
Well, Mr. Stroud comes up with a lot of good ideas, but if you look at some of these towns that make the report in March, some of them have pretty much spent all their money, some of them are stockpiling, as far as I'm concerned. I know there's Jews down the road, but I think, and I'll be honest with you, this resolution came late, and we're waiting until September so we can build up the occupancy tax money to pay it.
I see.
So I just, that's just my opinion. It's only personal, my own as a supervisor.
I'm gonna abstain because I don't really understand what the difference is. What normally happened? I mean, this, it looks like what usually happens. Right?
Well, it's just some back about 5 years, 7 years ago, we had a lot of occupancy tax money in the bank.
Uh-huh.
And people were saying you can't carry X amount of millions, but so it was decided to do this spending plan, just about the way it is,
Mhm.
to reduce what was in surplus.
Okay,
And over a couple of years that we done it, each year you're supposed to do it each year separately, not rotating, because it's a 1 year kind of resolution.
Mhm.
So some years we got it and some years we didn't.
right.
And now this year we didn't put it in a budget to give it away, the way it is. So that's the way this is why, and now they're coming up with the resolution to wait till September till we got more occupancy tax money. Because, COVID kind of killed a little of everything in all the towns.
Yeah.
Sales tax, odd tax,
Right.
we kind of depleted a little bit. And when we have to change, we always kept $1.5 million. I think that's the number, $1.5 million in reserve. The idea was, well, let's take $500,000 out of that and put it back in to fund some of these things. And I just feel that 1 year won't kill a lot of people. But that's why I'm no, not why I'm asking anybody else.
I mean, I'm gonna abstain.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Sam,
Who's
thank
up?
you
The
very
win,
much for your patience. You are up.
the Winter Cove.
Thank you so much. And we've distributed the packets. Thanks.
Oh, I thought you said something.
Oh.
So, no, this- Thank you.
Yeah.
No, you can take that.
Paul. Paul. Well, sure.
Yeah, I know. Right.
Yeah, you probably typed it.
That's my point. Do they configure something else out?
Thank you, Heather. Just 1 second as I fire up my computer.
Just speak up just a little bit.
Is it, am I on? Mic on? Well, of course, today the technology would fail me, but thank God we have the PowerPoint up on the screen, so I'll work from that. First of all, thank you for having us again this morning. Thank you for being part of this since last February and all the support you've given us. Our mission, if you remember back when we started this venture, was to bring visitation to Warren County, and not only to Warren County, but all the way through Warren County. And the data that we have provided to you and we'll go over today will show that we had much success this winter that we're very proud of. The agenda for today is I want to go over some of the survey results that we have. We have a gentleman, Steve Clenny from Zartico, who's a company we use for data. He'll be presenting the data on a more granular level and an opportunity to ask him questions. And then we'll bring Sarah up to talk about the marketing initiatives that took place. You might remember we came to you for the $3 million grant, the $3 million to help us get started. The project was actually much, much more than that. It ended up being just over $6 million for our first year expense and all the things we went through all in. So that was the cost of the project. So if we get in the PowerPoint, I'll go from these screens. So first slide, you go to the next one. No. I want to go over the number of tickets that we sold. The final number was 26,031 admission tickets sold. Now that's not parking and that's not some of the other things that we had for sale. That was straight admission. Was that lower than what we anticipated? Yes. Was it admirable for the first year? Yes. And there's a lot that goes into that number. So 26,031 is the one that we sold. This slide is interesting because each one of those circles represents a 5-mile radius. If you look at the heat map, we drew a circle around the center, and the epicenter of a lot of our visitors was the Clifton Park Half Moon area. You can see that there's 1,500 from that area. But notice the distribution around the state, and as we go out on this slide, notice how far reach we had with Sarah's marketing efforts. We truly reached beyond the local market and got into the lower Hudson Valley and the New York City market, which is where we wanted to be. We tracked this. These are ticket sales. These are straight ticket sales. This is not visitation to Warren County. And any of these slides that come up, and you have a packet that we distributed on May 8th that has, I think, 72 or 78 slides in it. If there's any questions you have as we go along, as you were reading through this, please feel free to stop me and ask. So one of the companies that we used, and the one we used for our ticketing agency was called Ticket Spice. So this is the information directly from them with the survey that gets sent out on their behalf. And it's separated into two parts. So the show began on December 8th. And from December 8th until the end of January, we had a 93% satisfaction rating, or an 8.6 out of 10 on the global scale. And then we did a change to the show. Vinny and some of the coalition members saw that we had some changes, some feedback that was coming back. So we brought Moment Factory back up for 4 days, and we shut the show down for 4 days and made the changes. You can see from February 1st until March 9th, we ran a 95.9% satisfaction rating. So the margins went up for us. So we knew at that point we made the right adjustments to finish out the year and finish out the show. These are very good ratings on any scale and any level. Next slide. So then we get into the survey. So at the conclusion of the show, we sent out a survey to 3 different levels of people. Number one was all of the Warren County inquiries that came in from November 1st through March 9th. The second level was the hotel guest emails that we had on file. And the third was on lakegeorge.com, a social media site. I believe it was Facebook's there. We had the survey out there. So we collected the data, and what we found was that our market was the baby boomers, the generation of 59 to 77. And if you go a little bit more granular on that, it's actually a 62-year-old woman was where it came out to be, which is not too surprising because we all know that women make the decision in the family. Follow that was the Generation X, 43 to 58, and then Generation Y. So that's how the demographics played out for us. We asked in the survey, did you attend Lake George Attractions Winter's Dream? Did you come, yes or no? And of the surveys, 31% said yes, but 68% said no. So 68% opened up our eyes to, we had a lot of people that we didn't reach. So the next slide, we asked, if you did not attend Winter's Dream, what was the decision that you did not attend it? And you can see the top two factors were, the number one was weather, and then the price. Then the third one was they didn't hear about us. Now that was interesting because part of the survey of guests that didn't hear about it stayed at the Fort William Henry. Now we had it on our marquees, we had it in every guest room, we had it everywhere possible around the property, and they didn't hear about it, including check-in time with verbiage. And that just tells you what level of frequency you have to be at to be able to reach those markets. So we found this very interesting, and we adjusted accordingly for 2024-25 season. So next question we asked is, okay, if you did not attend Winter's Dream, did you attend Winter's Realm? Because everybody was confused on that this winter. 90% said no, they didn't go to either show. And what we further found in the survey is that people did not go to both shows. Most people went to one or the other, which that opened up a big market for us for next year as well. And we were in conversations with Ice Castles or Winter's Realm, should they come back, on a joint ticket or some type of value package with them, because they sold 20,000 tickets in excess, and we sold 26. So there's 46,000 unique people to the area. Okay. Next slide. Do you typically travel in the winter months? If you answered no, and the answer is yes, we do typically travel. 69% said we travel. We didn't go to Winter's Dream, but we do travel. Further, more granular on this slide is if you do travel, where do you go? A lot of them were Caribbean, Florida, but many were Lake Placid, Lake George, etc. So there's more to the survey that we didn't put in these slides for the sake of time, but we did get quite a bit of data, which we wanted to present to you as we promised you throughout our presentations. We want to be able to provide Heather and Warren County back with a lot of good data coming off this event, because it was a 3-month event for us. So I want to get into the Zydeco data. And I'm going to do this one slide, and I'm going to turn it over to Steve Clenny. Who is Zydeco? Zydeco is one of the #1 companies upcoming in the world for data. They use a number of platforms that they analyze. One is Airbnb and the short-term vacation rentals. 2 is they use Smith Travel. 3 is they use Amadeus, which is the #1 platform for data used by a lot of the major brands now. They're bringing all that together in platforms using AI that are traveling at the speed of light. We just got back from a conference called Zydercon that was held in North Carolina last week. There were over 300 attendees there from the DMOs. A lot of the top players that you probably know: Minneapolis, Tampa, the Roost, Lake Placid was there. They won an award. Wisconsin, many of the big ones. And what was interesting at that conference is not only how they use the data, but how they rely on this data and make decisions on it. There was one special table that I sat at that they put together. And the table was, what do you do in the winter with no snow? And what I learned was that it wasn't just Warren County. It wasn't just the Northeast. It was the entire northern United States that went through rain, and it shut down carnivals and events and skiing and across the whole United States and northern part. And we were brainstorming what to do. I said, well, we put together this thing called Winter's Dream, and their eyes lit up, and they immediately asked me for my card, asked me for the contact for Moment Factory, asked me what did we do and what was the success on it, which I didn't share too much with them, but they were outside of our markets, and I'm sure that they'll be researching their own thing. But you absolutely made the right decision this winter that could have been a failure to do this project. You absolutely took a bold move on positioning Warren County to be 365, but to solve this winter weather problem. So how did we do? So this is Zartico. The top slide is 2022-23 winter, and I'll remind you that last year, the previous year, we had Lake Placid Winters games down in Warren County. We saw a lot of business from the winter games that were up there. The bottom half is this season. So if you look at hotel occupancies, last year was 39%, this year was 42%. We saw an 8% increase in hotel occupancies. Now the short-term vacation rental, which is down below, they were at 13%, but they saw a 9% decrease in occupancy. That sounds horrible. That's interesting. But then you get a little more granular on it. If you look at the hotel demand, which is the number of room nights sold, the hotel sold 42,800 room nights, which was 9% up. The Airbnbs, or the short-term vacation rentals, they sold 20.8. They sold one for every two hotels. They had a 25% increase. 25% increase. So the question, when you look at the data, and Mr. Wild is very good at this, is how can the occupancy be down when the number of room nights are up? Because there were that many more short-term vacation rentals came into the marketplace. That many more came in. They saw our presentations, they put them online, and they rented them. And I'm sure some of you in this room own short-term vacation rentals. It's a thing that the hotel is going to have to learn to compete with. This was a staggering number that came out. We were really surprised to see this. So the short-term vacation rentals did very well this winter. And who are they? Are they the owners downstate that owned the second home up here that discovered us during COVID? Many of them did. 70% of the people that came up during COVID discovered Warren County first time. The next year, 50% of them came back. A lot of them bought up a lot of the housing up here, and now they're doing short-term vacation rentals, which is not a bad thing. It's a very good thing. Because if you dig a little bit granular into that, they book in a 32 to 60-day window in advance, where the hotels are seeing a 3 to 7 day in advance. So they come up and they stay and they make a decision. You know, it's raining out today because the weather was horrible this winter. I can tell you many Saturdays going home and sitting on a heating pad because it rained all night. The weather shut down a lot of the winter activities. So if you're in a short-term vacation rental, you can make that decision. What am I going to do today? Am I going to go to Winter's Dream? I planned on it. Probably not with the weather. But that's a very good stat for us. And the question is, you know, we're doing a lot to make sure we collect that OCTEX dollars from those short-term vacation rentals. We have to be really diligent on that because that's not going to change. I imagine that number will increase and we'll continue to help improve short-term vacation rentals. The ADR of short-term vacation rentals was $313, significant, where the hotels came in at $127. You have to understand with the homes and the short-term vacation rentals, you're putting 3 or 4 families probably in that home. I tell this story because being in the hotel business, I go over to Gorham every year with my family ATVing. Unfortunately, Gorham is a community in New Hampshire that they do ATVing all summer, spring, etc., fall until the snow comes. Then they switch over to snowmobiling. Unless there's no snowmobiling, then they just keep doing ATVs. But the business is so good, there's no branded hotels. So I ended up staying in an Airbnb. Great experience. Never had one before. First year, went through Airbnb, the process, and it was a great process. Young lady was great, ran a great operation. The next year she says to me, why don't you call me directly? You don't have to go through Airbnb and pay those fees. Just call me, pay me directly, and I'll save you some cost. And so for the 4th year now, we'll be going through that. Does that happen all the time? No. Are there systems that scrape the internet? Yes. And I think we can be on top of it. But I think as AI develops, as our technology develops, as Airbnb becomes a major player in our county, we just have to be aware of what's happening and plan for it. Make sure they're part of the tourism community. I'll stop there and see if there's any questions before I turn this over to Steve Clenny. Okay, Heather, if we can bring Steve up, he's going to bring you into a little bit more granular data on Zartico.
See. Good morning. Can you all hear me okay? Or
Yes.
awesome. All right, step 1. All right, we got that taken care of. All right, then if I could share the screen, I can share over here. And so before I do share screen, good morning. I'm Stephen Clenny. I am a senior client success strategist with Zartico. I've been with Zartico for over 2 years. Before that, I have over almost 8 years in the DMO sports tourism space, and also another 5 to 8 years in events and sports operations professionally as well. So very excited to be working with you all, and we work with Sam and Gina on a regular basis, as well as over 270 different clients from around the country. Work with them in different data sets and helping them understand their overall visitor economies. As Sam mentioned as well, we look not only at lodging data sets, we also look at geolocation and spending data across the entire destination to give an idea and to understand, what's going on within the destination, to help the CVBs and the DMOs that we work with strategically plan their destination development, destination management, and also their marketing efforts. And so as Sam talked today and showed you some of the cool insights and some of the updates and performance metrics for hotel and lodging, I'm going to show you some of the performance metrics that we looked at in key insights for geolocation spending data that we saw in the Winter's Dream winter in 2023, 2024. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And we're going to compare it to the same time that previous year, looking at 2022, 2023. And so let me go and share my screen. And I get the fun job of talking to you all about numbers, so hopefully all ready. It'll be fun. Okay. All right, so on this right-hand side, we are looking at the 2020. This is the actual, just kind of a fun thing here too. This is the actual Zartico product that Sam and Gina work in on a regular basis. We call it our ZDOS, so it's our Zartico Destination Operating System. That's a really cool name, but again, this is their strategic planning tool they use. And so this is just one of the modules, one of the dashboards that they have access to help gain those insights of what's going on within the destination. So on the right-hand side, we have our visitor profile module for the 2023-2024 winter season. On the left-hand side, we have that same time period for 2022 and 2023 to get that understanding of what changed, what was different between the 2 years and what happened. Also on top as well, we are very transparent with our sample sizes for which you'll see as well. And so looking at the top here in this past year in 23-24, there was 34,663 devices observed in the destination. Again, these are visitors that stay within your destination for over 2 hours, are observed at at least one point of interest, and travel from over 50 miles away. We also saw a cardholder count of over almost 7,500 as well. And so another tool to think about this as well, that these are not people counters. This is not a estimation of attendance or overall visitor volume in your destination. These honestly are to be used to be transparent with our sample sizes and understand the variabilities that goes in with geolocation data and spending data. As privacy policies and laws change, and whether new apps are available that track geolocation data, or even just personal use of phones and tracking the devices. We do just put these in here as well, again, just so that our clients and our destination partners are aware of what they're looking at and making decisions off of. So we think of these as survey responses. And so imagine doing almost 35,000 surveys of asking people where they were from. And so it's a pretty healthy sample. All right. So moving into the key insights. So first, what we're looking at is destination-wide insights of our geolocation data and spending data. So what this first number is visitor percent of total. So what this is saying is if you were to survey all devices or all people that were at your points of interest during this past winter, and you asked, where were you from? Almost 38% would have come back and said that they were from further than 50 miles away. So they were visitors in your destination. Compare that to the same time last year where it was almost 28%. So it's almost a 10-point jump year over year in terms of the share of visitors in your destination. The next number we're looking at is the share of visitor spend. So of all spending activity within your destination that we monitor, how much of that was represented by visitors? So visitors represented almost 21% of all spending activity this last winter, compared to 16% the previous year. So just those two insights alone, when we first saw this working with Sam and Gina, strong indicators for the performance of this previous winter, even though weather was not ideal. Personally, I'm based out of Orlando, Florida, so it still sounds pretty cold to me, but it's still, these are very strong indicators for strong performance in your tourism economy and your visitor economy locally. This other number here too is your average visitor spend. So we think of this as the average transaction, how much visitors are spending per transaction. It was slightly down year over year, but we also have some thoughts within here too, but from my lens, it's a pretty marginal difference. So first we looked at the overall impact. Now we're going to look at where visitors are from and the differences year over year. I'll try to match it here. Okay, so in the 2023-2024 winter, about 42% of your visitors were from out-of-state markets, which was lower than the previous year, which was about 45%. This map here on the right-hand side just shows you a fun visual of those different DMAs and the media markets and that were represented from visitors. So the size of the bubble just shows that overall change in visitation. So we did look at this, and with Sam and Gina, we talked about, what were some of the marketing efforts for Winter Stream. And so in this table here, you see a little bit more detail about the specific markets itself. So there was a significant lift in the share of visitors from the New York market, which, again, talking to Sam and Gina, this was one of the primary targets to attract visitors from for this event. And so in this past year, of all visitors, New York made up 53% of all visitors. And they also represented 31% of all visitor spending activity in your destination this past winter. Compared that to the same time previous year, which was 40% and 24% visitor spend. Also on average, New York visitors were spending $4 more on average as well. And so looking at that, seeing the significant increase there were also some increases, slight increases as well within the Hartford, Connecticut market as well. And then we also saw increases slightly within the Boston market as well in terms of their performance and also their impact within spending. And so using this insights just on a regular basis, even looking forward, not only just to the winter, but to any season or activity and campaigns that the CBB is working on, we can look at this insight and this data on a regular basis to help make decisions and to help understand who are our highest valued visitors and from which markets. Knowing, if there are limited resources, applied to marketing or some unique and creative strategies that may be taking place, we can look at these to see, where maybe we should target this next coming year for the Winter Stream or for other seasons as well. Any questions so far? Pretty cool stuff. Yeah, okay. All right, so next we're going to go over some visitor demographics as well. Do also want to mention with the geolocation data in our visitor spending data, it is all anonymized data. We do not know any personally identifying information for any of the card holders or the mobile device holders. What we do know is that where they're from, essentially, and where they go. From the credit card data is where we do see demographics, and this is card holder provided and consented information. So this is when you apply for your credit cards or debit cards, you provide the financial institution your information. This is where it comes in from. And so what we did notice here, that the demographics did shift slightly this year. It actually skewed a little bit older, as Sam mentioned earlier as well. But the average household income also increased as well. So 44% of visitors observed this past winter had an average household income of over $100,000 compared to the previous year of only $39,000. Whether or not there are children in the household remained relatively the same. So we looked at overall where visitors, their overall impact, where visitors are from. Now we're going to look at where they went and how they impact and how they engage with your destination. So on the right-hand side, you see these are the different regions that are broken out within your map of your destination. So 27.6% of visitors were observed in the Queensbury region, 26% were observed in Lake George Village region as well. Then you also have 25% were observed in the Lake George region there. Compare that to the same time previous year where it was 36% in Queensbury, 19% in Lake George, and 17% in Lake George Village. Again, in the conversations we've had and the strategy meetings we've had with Sam and Gina is looking at this and seeing, that was the goal, is to get more people dispersed and moving around the destination, specifically within the Lake George Village and Lake George region itself. I know Sam and Gina mentioned in our calls too, some different changes within the Bolton region and Johnsburg as well, because of the previous events that were held in the 2022-2023 year that showed some of the impact and movement. But you also do see the change in movement as well because of weather related. And so it wasn't going to Queensbury where the state park was or where ski resorts might be. So you do see that activity changing as well for those visitors. This next insight here in blue is the same data as above, and I'm actually going to remove that just to make it a little bit cleaner. This is looking at the visitation to accommodations. And so we only map the POIs for traditional hotels and motels. We do not map private homes for privacy reasons and everything there. But this is showing you where the dispersion is and where your visitors were staying overnight in hotels and motels across the destination with which regions. So again, you do see that shift going within the Lake George region and Lake George Village region and outside of the Queensbury region, because again, the events that changed year over year and also weather patterns. All right. Next, we're going to look at where they went by POI category. So what types of activities were they doing, where they went within your destination. So this past year, over half of all visitors observed in your destination were also observed at an accommodation. And so compare that to the same time previous year at only 44.5%. I think with that too, some of the activities for Winter's Dream and for some of the other promotions that were there occurring within some of the accommodations, but also you do see the overall occupancy rates were up and all their metric, other KPIs for hotel performance were up as well. So those all shine, really well there. There was a shift within the visitation to outdoor recreation. Again, that could be weather related, not going up to the state park or to the ski resorts. Then the rest of the movement within the destination itself stayed relatively similar year over year. Some increases and shifts within attractions or within food points of interest. And then next, we're going to look at spending activity. So again, on the right-hand side, we're looking at visitor spending by different categories. Not only what is that mix of where their spending was going, but also how much were they spending in the different categories. So we'll start here up at the top. So on this insight here, this is looking at that overall share of spend in the different categories. So in 2023, 2024, there was a slight decrease in the share of spend going into the food category. But that's because overall spending activity was more so going towards accommodations. There's also an increase in gas and service stations, which emphasized the drive market from New York as well. But what's neat about this product as well is we can click into these categories to learn a little bit more about what happens within that food category itself. And so what you'll see here, which was a shift this year, and as Sam mentioned as well, is understanding visitors to short-term vacation rentals and what those could provide and what that really means to your overall market and how to approach and how to promote the destination to those types of visitors. Because there was a shift in share of spend to grocery stores and supermarkets, which is an indicator for short-term rental stays. So you saw how many more short-term vacation rentals were booked this past summer compared to the same time previous year. So that's just something to keep in mind, and we can keep monitoring as well. You can monitor by origin market as well, and who's spending more in grocery stores versus restaurants. So you can target those groups specifically with different itineraries, different creative ads and content that promotes either short-term vacation rentals and a longer length of stay, or even look to boost your culinary and dining experience as well to see if you can shift any money into local restaurants and eating places. And then on the right-hand side as well, you're looking at that average spend in visitor in the different categories as well. And so we're looking at a little bit more detail in the bottom as well, but you'll see accommodations and outdoor recreation and retail. Outdoor recreation includes campgrounds, as well as RV and private golf memberships and things like that. But you do see some shifts within the different spending and activities. And so I'm going to scroll down to the next categories because these are some really neat insights as well. And so we dive in a little bit more to the specific hospitality industry categories to understand the overall impact of visitor spending within those categories and also how much they're spending. So on this left-hand column, it's that same insight that we saw above, that's that visitor share of spend of total. And it looks specifically within these categories. So within restaurants, this past winter, 25% of all spending activity in restaurants was represented by visitors. Compare that to the same time previous year was 21%. So what this represents is a quarter of all of your tables within your restaurants this past year were from visitors. And on average, they were spending $100. Slightly less year over year. I'm sure we're all aware too of different limitations and things that people are putting within their budgets when they do travel. I think I've heard with other destinations as well and other partners, and Sam, you might have mentioned this as well, where there's more hamburgers being sold than steaks within the restaurants. So next point here within the retail category, within 23-24, 13% of all retail spending was represented by visitors compared to 11% the same year. But here as well, they were spending $30 more on average. Then within accommodations, this was a really big jump as well. The visitor impact in accommodations. So visitors represented 77% of all spending in accommodations this past winter, compared to 60% the same time last year. On average, they were spending about $50 less. And as we were looking at that too, that could be just a shorter length of stay overall. To where they're still coming to your destination, there is higher performance, but that length of stay is not as long due to whether just a weekend trip or a leisure trip as they're coming within to visit Winter's Dream or the other activities within your community. But that's just something interesting too to monitor, especially during shoulder seasons, because we take the inverse. Imagine, for this year, 23%, excuse me, that's my Florida education. 23% of all spending activity was those local spends. And so there is still that market locally as well that's staying in accommodations, whether it's for local staycations, events, or other activities that they may need. And so that's just something else to keep in mind and then monitor. Then finally, to close out, we're looking at attractions. Again, another increase. There was a lower average visitor spend within attractions, but the share of visitor spending within attractions did increase almost 11 points. So that is the data and performance. So I do want to congratulate the team there at Lake George CVB and everyone there. From our eyes and our lens here at Zydeco, incredible performance in terms of your visitor economy and driving new markets into your destination and driving more impact. So any questions you all have?
Thank you, Stephen. Can you stay on just a few seconds? We have a couple more.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as you can see, the data is deep and rich. And the exciting part with Zydeco is we're going to be able to do that, everything you just saw by event. So think about the OCTAX committee being able to look at an event and get to this granular level with data to the nth degree by event to be able to make decisions on award, how much do you award, et cetera. That's what we can present to you. And you saw the far reach. Thank you for Sarah Maddox and her team in marketing. What I thought was interesting, Stephen, is the number one point of interest increase was Sacred Heart Church. Makes sense with the short-term vacation rentals. Sacred Heart Church has the biggest increase. So somebody should get to Father and ask for double baskets. I would recommend that. So with that said, if there's no questions, I'm sorry, can we go back to the PowerPoint slide? Can we go to this one and go to the last couple pages? Well, I got Stephen on. The other thing that Zydeco is going to, one second here, I don't mean to fly through this. What this equated to is there were 7,700 additional room nights generated, 1.7 million in additional just lodging revenue, and $69,620 in additional octax dollars. That's what the numbers equate to. Next slide. You can keep going to this. Stephen covered all this. Yep. Next. 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 Right here. So I think I presented this at one of our previous meetings, but this article is going to give us the ability to track this again by event, by the events that go on. This is the movement around the county that took place from December 8th until March 9th by visitors. I pulled one strand out and you can see they went from the Marriott to, I think, Blue Water Manor. Tells you all the data, how many nights they're staying, when they came in, et cetera. But you can see, did we accomplish our goal of bringing people to the county and moving them through the county to the different attractions, to the different restaurants? The biggest bar you see there is the travel from Lake George to Walmart. So Walmart did very well. But I think the answer is yes. Yeah, these are actually Zydeco visitors that came to the county. So again, by events, you'll be able to really dissect these events going forward and take a hard look at them. So I want to show you that slide. With that said, I'd like to thank you for your time with me. I'd like to turn you over to Sarah, who's going to talk to you about the spend that we had on marketing. Thank you.
So you have a packet with 47 sheets on the marketing. We're going to go through this in detail for the next 3 hours. No, I'm not going to do that to you. You've got a lot of really great data. What's the greatest challenge tourism businesses have? For the last 28 years, I've talked to most of the hotel owners, most of the vacation rental people, and they say, I don't need business in July and August. I need business off season. The problem is greater than just their problem. It creates unemployment. It creates problems with hiring really good people year round. This is a really big problem. This year was what we call a strong El Nino, 9 months of a strong El Nino. That means it's cold in the south and warm in the north. This should have been our worst year, probably to date. And what Sam found when he went to, and Sam and Gina found when they went to Zydeco, is it was the worst year to date for many of these across the northern United States. But it wasn't for us. And that is competing against the $83 million that was spent around the world last year to promote winter games, which we did benefit from with quite a few hotel nights. Why is that? Why were Airbnbs and vacation rentals up 25%? Why were hotels up 9 to 10%? Why were the supermarkets up so much? It had a lot, although it's not just Winter's Dream, it's Winter's Realms, and we co-marketed those two. We promoted both of those events together. The magnitude of the events and the viral nature of this inaugural event resulted in $4 million worth of advertising value. That's a lot. And that, even with that, people say they didn't hear about the event. But the amount of times we are on the news, on TV with ads, on the radio, in digital TV format with ads, the supermarket ads that Market 32 donated, the newspaper ads with the Chronicle and Lake George Mirror, the posters that were about in the hotels, the text marketing that Nudge did for us for free to 200,000 New York City people, the banners, the email marketing, the influencer marketing, that all had a value of $4 million. And you'll see in the packet, I think it's really important to note that there's a significant amount of donated marketing. And it's noted by how, what percentage of marketing. The county benefited from 400,000, turning a $400,000 marketing and PR budget into $4 million of advertising value. And that was because it was inaugural. It was newsworthy. People wanted to talk about it. People wanted to share it. So it gave us an opportunity to go more viral than you would on, say, a concert or a music, something that happens every day. It was unusual, and that resulted in a lot of visibility for the county, which that branding has value. You have in the marketing materials, how people came. Top source, they came direct. How did they know to type in LakeGeorgeWinterstream.com? They knew because of the marketing, of the PR, of the word of mouth that happened. People typed in LakeGeorgeWinterstream.com. They searched for it. So the SEO efforts were good. They found, what should I do in the winter attractions, and it was out there. There were hundreds of articles written about it. The top paid source was the LakeGeorge.com series of our Facebook website, all of that, followed by social media. We did significant spend on social media, and that resulted in a very strong return on ad dollar. You have the data, the momentum is there. So how do we solve the problem of winter? The good news is there's a very strong chance this is going to be La Nina next year, which means a cold, snowy winter, which we're all hoping for, right? But how do you solve it? And you started. You solve it one really bold move at a time. And so for that, I applaud you. And I want to open it up to any questions about the marketing. There's a lot of data here, but we've kind of gone over it in multiple every time I've come here. So I didn't want to go over the same thing. Yes.
Can I ask a question about the marketing, the realm and the dreams?
Yes.
Why was that separate? I mean, I understand it's two different things, but it's confusing to maybe the visitor.
Yes.
And I was wondering maybe how we could fix, or improve that.
Oh, what a great question. That is a great question. So, why did they name it Winter Realms and we were Winter's Dream, right? So while it was a multiple month process to name Winter's Dream, it had to be trademarked, all of that. And the day before we were going to announce Winter's Dream, it was finally trademarked and approved. They announced Winter Realms, right? And that's why we had to co-market it and talk about each one and the differences between them. Right now, we have $4 million of brand recognition to Winter's Dream. And we did do the spend. They had a pretty small spend of maybe, I think, $40,000. So people came, and because their physical location is wide open, many of our visitors went to Winter's Realm, kind of confused, right? But that's okay. They had a good time, and they came to Lake George, and that's all that matters, right? So how are we going to solve it? We were on different ticketing systems. There were issues where we couldn't do a joint ticket. We are working to see if we can do something like that. We're talking to them about how to do better co-marketing of like, hey, you bought this ticket, now would you like to buy this ticket? So doing more of that. We did a lot of that this year, but doing even more. We did ask them if they'd be willing to change their name, and they said no. So we did try that. And yes, it took so much explaining why the two are different. And it was a challenge for us. And it will continue to be a challenge with the two names being similar. And if anybody has ideas beyond what we're doing, we're definitely open. We're going to do everything we can to make sure there's a clear delineation between the events. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for supporting this.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, moving on to referrals, we have none. Privilege to the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been a supporter of Winter's Dream since the very beginning and the get-go. One of the things that I'm a little frustrated about is that we've never seen the results compared to the plan. And I know I've been hearing that there's some concern among many of the supervisors about moving forward. And what I really think we need to do is kind of dig into this, not from a data, because that was too much data for me to even get my arms around. It just, keep it simple. This is what the plan was. This is what we did. This is what our continued risks are going to be. And this is how we're going to fix it and make it better for next year. I was with GE. We had one slide we could present. It was called a 4-block. And it was cost, benefits, risk, timing, whatever you wanted to do. But one slide, there were 50 pages backup, but one slide to give us the executive summary as a board. I think that's what we need. I don't think we need all this data. We need that executive summary that says, this is what the plan was. This is what we did. This is where we're going. And this is why we should continue to support it. So I'm also in favor of continuing to support it, but I do need to see this. And I think as a board, that's kind of what our responsibilities are. We're not going to get in the weeds. I know the weeds are good to understand it if we have specific questions, but where are we going with this? So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll see you again next month, if not sooner.
All right, still open to the floor. Gina, up to,
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Not about this, but just generating revenue in general. Obviously, we get revenue from hotels, whether they're major, like Queensbury or Fort William Henry, and we get family-owned businesses and cabins and mom and pop, short-term rentals now. And I don't know the answer to this, but I'd like to have it used about campgrounds. And I've been asked this question by some of our folks. I go to a mom and pop hotel and they get charged. I go to a campground, whether it's a local campground, I'm not sure if we could charge a state campground or not, but I'd like to have some of those answers so that I can talk about it intelligently, because I don't have an answer. And I don't know if the county, when the law was drafted and passed, how much that was discussed, or if there's interest or lack of interest.
remember that the state doesn't want to collect the op tax on campus.
Well, that's on state camp.
But there are some regular ones that we pay.
That's a law regulation.
Yeah.
We'll look into that and get back to you. I'm not 100% sure of whether or not you can or cannot. That would be a legal question, but I will say, we collaboratively with the attorney's office as well as with the treasurer's office are going to be looking at doing an occupancy tax, workshop where we present where we are right now on the law, the regulations, and then looking at that. And we're most likely looking at a whole group or a whole board workshop. So there's the ability to look at this holistically, and make sure that it's in line with what the county and the direction the county wants to go. So that's coming up probably later summer, early fall timeframe. But during that time, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, that's campground. Will you also be giving us information on delinquent properties? Specifically, hotels, motels, short-term rentals who are not, or were delinquent on. I think this is not a fair playing system.
Yep. Yeah.
Right, when we have properties that you never have to question.
Yeah.
They're on time, they're paying their fair share.
Yep.
And others are taking advantage of it.
Sure.
So as that workshop develops, I'd like that to be part of
Be
it.
part of it. Okay, and if I may ask the treasurer.
Hi. First of all, just for future meetings, no one in this back row can hear anything that's being said. So I don't know if it's a microphone issue or if we could just ask that everybody speak up. I think I heard a couple of things, and thanks Heather for taking the lead. Yes, we're going to work in support of that workshop. To your point on delinquency, we are putting a huge emphasis. Call it my naughty list. I'm up to 15 people. I'm very happy to say, we're probably close to 200,000 with another. We're literally legal. We're putting, they're called indexes. It's kind of a lien. So when they are delinquent, we actually put liens against the properties or indexes against the properties. So when they're trying to, when they're trying to be sold, we have two right now. We have the Mohegan, which has been a really big long-term offender. We also have the Baymont. So we actually have indexes against those. And right now they're both being sold and they can't be sold until they settle with the county. So that's a new process we're putting in place. Also, Granicus is in the works. So give us a couple more months. We're going to get a lot of people that are no longer, who aren't registered, that we're going to get them registered and get them to pay go forward. But we're also going to be able to look back historically. So that I'm hoping is going to be a nice uptick. And there was one other question that I was on the delinquencies. So we're working on the delinquencies. I can give an update maybe at the next tourism. I can actually let you know where we are. And then it will definitely be worked into the OCTAX or in the workshop, excuse me. One other thing, it's a little bit not related, is sales tax. There was a couple of weeks ago in early May, I went to the NISAC Financial Forum and it looked like it was failing, that New York State was going to try to put sales tax on short-term rentals. It was rather disappointing. I asked very direct questions. It was almost like somebody raised in earlier. They wanted to get the sales tax on short-term rentals and it kind of got torpedoed because they also wanted to have, because of the housing shortage and the housing issues, they wanted to have a very complete register of all the short-term rentals and owners, et cetera. And it actually was kind of failed because of that. Airbnb, nobody would play ball. Literally just came across my desk yesterday through a NISAC summary. They have made significant progress in the legislature and it looks like it might actually pass. So they might actually get sales tax on short-term rentals. And I was requested as an elected official to reach out to Speaker Heastie. And I did yesterday. And what I'd like to do is send it out to the board to have you as elected officials also support that effort to make sure that it passes, gets on the floor and passes. Okay?
Thank you. Just a minute back to Gina. I saw her hand up on the campground tax.
Yes, two things. So campgrounds that have rentals, different, because most people come in with their tents or their RVs or that. So that is not, they don't collect occupancy on that. But if they have a tiny house rental or a cabin rental or an RV rental on the property, they do collect occupancy tax. So Lake George RV Park, I know, Lake George Escape, not the state campgrounds, but they do collect occupancy tax. And I know Heather probably knows this better than me, but we have no good data on occupancy of campgrounds overall. I mean, Campground Owners of New York State does not have that. You know, I wish that we did. You know, we say that we've got 5,000 campsites in Warren County, but we don't know what their occupancy is, honestly. So that's all.
Oh, hope that gave you, that's good. Thank you. Sam, you want something else?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Gene. I just didn't want to leave, Mr. Wild, Mike, your question open-ended. Please know that the data we provided today was to close out this year and to provide you with the wealth of data that we can. We have been working very hard on looking at next year. We're addressing pricing, we're addressing times, we're addressing days open, promotions, even our ticketing agency. So I'd love to sit down one-on-one with you and go over what our plans are and where we stand, where we saw some of our pitfalls were for this year and how we're going to correct them. But I didn't want to leave you open-ended without addressing it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
You're a
Sam.
brilliant guy.
All right, Gina, do you have anything, maybe quick report on the CBB board?
Not anything.
Okay.
here.
All right.
Thank you.
Amy from Glens Falls, do you have?
Just go Thunder, you know, yeah. And I'm glad to see a lot of people at the games. Thank you so much. Memorial Day Parade, Supervisor Stroud, thank you for all your great work on the Memorial Day Parade. We're also having a community day to celebrate the investment in our parks with that wonderful ARPA money. And so come by after the parade and watch a youth basketball tournament and
try pickleball. We'll have, an exhibition and some demo equipment for you, and that'll happen predominantly in Crandall and Murray Street Playground. Does everyone know where Murray Street is? Have you been there? Okay, because it looks really good. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, nothing else. I'll call for a motion to adjourn. Mr. Stroud? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.